We've always been taught to look at India from the Western mindset. But this book is different. It shows us the difference between the Indian and the Western perspective. It truly establishes a unique identity for India. In fact, the author has written several great books and even given grants to US universities for Indic studies. He's now organizing Swadeshi Indology conferences to reverse the gaze. So here I am to learn more. Namaste, Rajiv ji.
Namaste, Nidhi.
I would like to know from you, what is the most unique and ancient identity of India?
This is the Rig Veda, where it all begins.
लॉर्ड मैकाले के ज़माने में जब वेद को लेकर के बड़ा तहलका मचा और फ्रेडरिक मैक्समूलर ने लॉर्ड मैकाले के कहने में आकर के वेदों के बारे में एक उन्होंने घोषणा कर दी कि वेद जो हैं ये ईसा से 1200 साल पहले लिखे गए, तो सारी दुनिया में जो है विद्वानों में एकदम समझिए कि एक आंदोलन जैसा मच गया। और विशेष करके उन विद्वानों में जो कि इंग्लैंड के नहीं थे, क्योंकि इंग्लैंड की मानसिकता भारत के प्रति दूसरी थी, वो हमको गुलाम समझते थे। लेकिन बाकी जिन लोगों ने करीब 150 की संख्या में जिन विद्वानों ने संस्कृत को पढ़ा था, वो सब एकदम उनका खून खौल उठा। ये क्या खिलवाड़ किया है आपने कि वेद जैसे वेदों के बारे में आपने ये बात कह दी। बहरहाल वो बड़ी लंबी कहानी है, लेकिन उस कहानी का अंत यही है कि 1859 में फ्रांस की एक सभा में फ्रेडरिक मैक्समूलर को सारे विद्वानों के सामने हाथ जोड़ करके क्षमा याचना करना पड़ा और अपने मत को वापस लेना पड़ा। और उन्होंने कहा कि हमने केवल एक अटकलबाजी, एक संभावना हमने व्यक्त किया था। आज मैं घोषित करना चाहता हूं कि वेदों की तिथि निश्चित करने का कोई साधन न मनुष्य के पास है और न भविष्य में होगा। यहां तक झगड़ा आ गया 19वीं शताब्दी में। लेकिन उसके बाद ही बाल गंगाधर तिलक ने, जब वो मांडले के जेल में उनको निर्वासित किया गया, तो वो बहुत उच्च कोट के विद्वान थे, बहुत बड़े ज्योतिषी थे और उनके ज्ञान की कोई सीमा नहीं थी। उन्होंने वेदों का गहन अध्ययन किया और अपने द ओरियन नामक ग्रंथ में उन्होंने एक जो वसंत संपात का सिद्धांत दिया, वो एक अकाट्य सिद्धांत है। और उस सिद्धांत के बाद जो है आज तक फिर कोई वेद के बारे में कोई आशंका नहीं करता है। वसंत संपात के सिद्धांत के आधार पर तिलक जी ने ये घोषणा की कि मैत्रायणी संहिता के मंत्रों में जो वर्णन आया हुआ है, उस वर्णन से ये सिद्ध होता है कि जब सूर्य के चारों ओर वार्षिक गति में संक्रमण करने वाली पृथ्वी जब पुनर्वसु नक्षत्र के क्षेत्र में प्रवेश करती थी, सूर्य के साथ संपर्क उसका बनता था, उस समय वसंत ऋतु प्रारंभ हुआ करती थी। ये मैत्रायणी संहिता में आया हुआ है। जबकि आज की स्थिति ये हो गई है कि अपनी वार्षिक गति में पृथ्वी जब पूर्वा भाद्रपद नक्षत्र के चतुर्थ चरण में प्रवेश करती है, तब सूर्य के साथ उसकी संक्रांति जब होती है, तब वसंत प्रारंभ होता है। इन दोनों स्थितियों में बहुत बड़ा भौगोलिक अंतर दिखाई पड़ता है, खगोलीय अंतर दिखाई पड़ता है, क्योंकि पृथ्वी की जो गति उस समय थी पुनर्वसु नक्षत्र के क्षेत्र में और जो आज है, दोनों गतियों में करीब 4.5 नक्षत्र का अंतर है। और जब पृथ्वी अपनी गति में एक नक्षत्र पूरा पीछे खिसक जाए, तो इस घटना में 960 वर्ष का समय लगता है। और चूंकि 4.5 नक्षत्र पीछे खिसक करके वो वसंत ऋतु करा रही है, इसलिए वो जो वर्णन है मैत्रायणी संहिता का, वो आज से 4.5 गुणे 960 साल पहले का रहा होगा। और मेरा ये कहना है कि वो समय आज से लगभग 6500 साल पहले का था। और चूंकि पुनर्वसु नक्षत्र का जो देवता है वो देवमाता अदिति माना गया है, इसलिए हम उसको अदिति एरा कहेंगे। संपूर्ण विश्व संस्कृति का जो कालखंड आज मनुष्य के पास है, मनुष्य माने इंडियंस। हमारे पास जो प्रामाणिक दस्तावेज है कि कौन कालखंड सबसे प्राचीन था, वो केवल भारतीयों को ज्ञात है और उसको हम अदिति एरा कहेंगे। यही संसार का प्राचीनतम युग है और ये युग भारत में था। और जब उस युग में मैत्रायणी संहिता के मंत्र लिखे जा रहे थे, तो फिर वेद का और प्राचीन रूप कितना रहा होगा, ये कहना बड़ा मुश्किल है।
While studying the Vedas, it appears as if human beings are communicating directly with nature. That sensitivity has long disappeared. But many Vedic words are still in use in about 1,600 living languages of India. Ordinary Indians understand and use them with the same meanings that were prevalent in Vedic times.
The most important term to understand about who we are is the term Sanatana Dharma. Sanatana means eternal, beginningless, endless. So it's not a particular event in history that we have to study. It's not that some particular thing happened in history and if it's falsified, then everything will fall apart.
Maharishi Vedvyas compiled and classified the Vedas around 3100 BC. Some parts of the Vedas may be older than the Harappan cities. Some Puranas have contents as old as the Vedas. The river Vaitarni, described in the Garud Purana, can be seen here on the spot from Harappa. Recent excavations provide evidence that city life may have begun from around 9,000 years ago. From the excavations in Birhana, this Mohenjo-daro type of dancing figure was also found.
Dancing figure is important from two reasons, in fact. One is that we see a complex introduction of very complex copper technology. It is made in a mold, in fact, cast in a mold. So that is considered to be very complex technology, which was, developed or, perfected by the Harappans. And then, for the second important significance of that figure is wearing bangles, in fact, those, spiral bangles in one hand. And that tradition continues even today in Rajasthan, Gujarat.
It is only in a highly developed society that one can see this kind of joyful representation of dance. Wheeler had proclaimed, "There's nothing like her, I think, in the world." Perfectly confident of herself and the world around her. Many continuities of the civilization can be seen in present-day Indian life and philosophy.
Earliest evidence for using sindoor comes from Harappan civilization. There is a site called Nausero, from where, and there are other sites from where a small terracotta figurine of women have been found, in which, would you believe that in the parting, sindoor is intact.
It is surprising that the shape of a writing slate found in Harappan cities is still being used in India.
You cannot believe it. Exactly similar takti, which I have used in my early days as a primary school teacher, primary school student, that have been found. But best part is, you have ancient from Mohenjo-daro, you have modern from modern India. In between, there is a terracotta plaque found from Mathura, where a boy is sitting with a slate, with the handle in the left hand, as usually we did it, writing with the right hand, and you could decipher the Brahmi lipi, Brahmi script on that slate. So tradition of learning, tradition of writing, tradition of reading goes back to India, very hoary past, but at least there are physical remains of it which prove not only you have to go to Vedas and Puranas and all that, physical remains are there. So at least for 5,500 years, we have continuity in terms of physical evidence of reading and writing. Indian civilizational development, you can say, that starts about 9,000 BC. That's about 11,000 years from today. And once it started developing, You don't see any break. It has continued on and on and on. Lots of features which may have developed 5,000 years ago, 6,000 years ago, they can be seen in today's life, day-to-day life.
For last 10,000 years, there is no large-scale migration either from outside or from India to outside. So, but right from the beginning of settled life, people were in fact in touch with other regions, maybe for trade purpose. Now that is now established clearly now. I can vouch for their indigenous development, and based on both impact on the archaeological data and also on the genetic data also. We are going to publish the DNA data from the site of Rakhigadi. So that is going to confirm impact about the population. The DNA is very strong, in fact, local DNA is very strong. And there is some sprinkling of maybe, from outside region, from Iran also we are getting, and from South India also. So right from beginning, there was some kind of mixture of the population. Like today, when it comes to the, this Rigvedic text, there are many issues which we are not been able to resolve them. One is that, when was it written? We are not really clear about the date of this, whether it was written at one stage or over a period of, very long period, we do not know. But suppose, if you want to use that data impact and compare with the archaeological culture, then, it indicates that, the Harappans and the Rigvedic were one and the same. The Harappans were the founders of the Indian culture, Indian tradition, and Indian knowledge system. And from Harappans till the present, there is a continuity in all this, in fact, continuity in the tradition, continuity into the knowledge system.
The way Harappans used to hoist the flag and worship the peepal tree, and the types of jewelry and utensils they used are still being seen today. The markings of the wheels of bullock carts show that the gauge has remained the same until today. Similar units of length and weight were in use till recent times in India. Amazingly, the size and shape of these bricks in Cambodia are the same as those found at the Harappan sites. The symbol of universal well-being, the swastik, continues to be used in India today. The hymns of this symbol are sung on every auspicious occasion. It is for the well-being of humans and all living and non-living beings as well. This thought of universal well-being is the core concept of the Hindus, Buddhists, and Jains. This Pashupati, Lord of Beasts, is sitting in the same asana in which King Yudhishthir used to sit for Abhishekam, Puja, and his bath. The continuity of this asana can be found throughout historical times. The Nasagra, or the Shambhavi Mudra, in which this yogi is sitting, continues to be depicted in sculptures and literature. These deer under the asana of yogis has been shown like this over the ages. Who else can symbolize the mind better than the flighty deer? Controlling the mind is tougher than holding air in a fist. But the yogis disciplined it and made it dance on their fingertips. A disciplined mind makes a disciplined society. Disciplined minds ensured that their cities were clean and well organized.
And we are not learning from the Harappans, in fact. Today, we have to, launch program like Swachh Bharat Abhiyan. Our Prime Minister has to do that. But you know that the Harappan cities, 5,000 years ago, they were the most clean cities. If you look at the maybe drainage pattern, the main drainage line was taken outside the city wall and emptied somewhere. They made sure that it is not within the settlement. And the people were so healthy. Now we have excavated number of skeletal remains from both Farmana as well as Rakhigadi. And some of the Koreans are, they are looking at the pathology part. And they are very much disappointed. They say that Harappans were not suffering from any disease. In fact, they were so healthy people.
The knowledge of treating food as medicine is very old. They were using the same spices as are being used by Indians today. Such amazingly long continuities of eating and drinking, clothing and behavior, dance and music, language and philosophy are not seen anywhere else in the world. Civilizations have been destroyed and lost in time. Today, the people of many lands know very little about their ancestors. This is the Inca civilization. Europeans killed the Inca people brutally and destroyed their civilization. Their religion, beliefs, and philosophies were all lost. Their culture was razed forever. Here were the Mayan and Aztec civilization, known for their unique script, calendar, and mathematics. Spanish invaders erased 90% of the Aztec population by infecting them with old world diseases like smallpox, measles, influenza, etc. Their cultures were lost forever. The Egyptians created a prosperous golden civilization, highly developed in arts and sciences. It vanished within 200 years of the Islamic invasion. No one was left to worship their gods and pharaohs. People lost ties with their ancestors. Its culture was annihilated. This is the great civilization of Mesopotamia, which extended across Iraq, Iran, Syria, and Kuwait. The Greeks plundered it in 332 BC. Later, this too was taken over by Islamic rulers. People had to sever their ties with their ancestors. Cultural continuities were lost forever. This is the Chinese civilization. It came into existence around 1750 BC. Maoists destroyed it in the name of the Cultural Revolution. But the present Chinese government is trying to revive it. Here was the great civilization of Greece, which influenced science, mathematics, medicine, and philosophy. Even today, the modern Western mind operates from the Greek framework. This too was raised, first by Islam, then by the Christians. Today, the Greeks no longer worship their earlier gods and faintly remember their rich culture. This is the Indian civilization. Despite internal wars and outside invasions, the majority of Indians today are living in the same tradition of their age-old Vedic and Harappan cultures. What is the reason behind this?
Now, you know, we study about the great Indus civilization, but that's in time and place. It's in history. It's not eternal. The rishis discovered something amazing. The entire cosmos is also present as every particle, every location in time and place. So the macro is also the same thing as the micro. The whole cosmos is present in our bodies. It's present externally in society. So there's a mirror effect. As the big, so also it's reflected in the tiny. This is a very interesting macro-micro principle, very central to the entire Vedic tradition. And it has the following significance. When you want to understand the cosmos, you can take any object, and if you meditate enough on it, if you dwell enough on it, if you do your tapasya and your puja enough on it, you can actually discover for yourself the entire cosmos. This is why we have the whole deity practice, because a deity is the micro presence of the macro. The Supreme Person is present in a certain form so that it is more accessible, more friendly, you can say more user-friendly. And this immediate access of the divine in a micro form is our practice of the deity worship. The same way the Tantra people discovered the macro in their own bodies. They discovered that through certain practices, everyone can discover this. So you don't need a priesthood in the middle. The priests are coaches and they are useful, but many great exemplars have attained this knowledge for themselves just through precise observation. So the purpose of yoga, the purpose of meditation is to attain the stillness such that this is self-revealed to each of us. We don't really need books. Books are nice. Shastras exist. They are the great texts. They are nice. They are very helpful. Teachers are very important. Gurus are very important. But actually, if a person has none of these, and if all of these got destroyed for some reason, you can always rediscover the same truth because this truth is present in every single particle, in every moment in time, in each one of us. And this presence of the Supreme in each one of us is what we also call Satchitanand.
Truth, consciousness, and bliss. With these three at the core, let's find out how deep are the roots of the philosophy of this inspiring civilization. Civilization is like a tree. How a tree withstands a storm depends on how deep are its roots. The roots of Indian philosophy are very deep. Therefore, the ancient Indian civilization survived the winds of time. To understand the depth of Indian philosophies, let us compare them with Greek philosophy.